Imagine stepping off a train into the heart of Moscow sometime in the 1960s. The air is sharp, especially in winter, and carries the scent of coal smoke and wet stone. Snow gathers along the edges of wide boulevards. Above you, monumental buildings rise in tiers of concrete and pale stone, crowned with red stars that catch the morning light. Loudspeakers crackle faintly in the distance. Somewhere, a factory siren marks the beginning of another working day in the capital of the Soviet Union. This is Moscow during the Cold War, a city at the center of one of the most intense rivalries in modern history. To outsiders, it is mysterious, guarded, and powerful. To the people who live here, it is home. The Cold War began after the devastation of the Second World War, as former allies drifted into ideological confrontation. On one side stood the United States and its Western partners. On the other stood the Soviet Union, officially known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, governed from this very city. Moscow became more than a capital. It became a symbol, a command center, a stage upon which history unfolded. As you walk through the city, the first thing you notice is its scale. Moscow was designed to impress. Under the leadership of Joseph Stalin and later Nikita Khrushchev and Leonid Brezhnev, the city was reshaped to reflect the strength and permanence of the Soviet state. Broad avenues such as Tverskaya Street cut through the urban landscape, built wide enough for military parades and long processions. Buildings are massive, symmetrical, authoritative. In the distance, the towers of the Kremlin rise above red brick walls. The Kremlin is not just a fortress, it is the political heart of the Soviet Union. Behind those walls, decisions are made that influence revolutions in distant countries, nuclear strategies, and the fate of millions. The red star atop the Spasskaya Tower glows at night, a reminder that power resides here. Just outside the Kremlin lies Red Square, vast, open, and iconic. Here, military parades display missiles, tanks, and marching soldiers before rows of leaders standing atop Lenin's mausoleum. Crowds gather during national holidays. Banners wave, brass bands play. Cameras capture images that will be broadcast across the world. In the Cold War era, Red Square is not merely a public space, it is theater. Political theater designed to project unity and strength. Yet beyond the spectacle, life unfolds in quieter, more ordinary ways. It is early morning now. Workers hurry toward tram stops and metro entrances. Many wear thick coats, scarves wrapped tightly around their faces. Women carry string bags, known as avoskas, in case they encounter goods for sale later in the day. There's a rhythm to the movement, purposeful, disciplined. You descend into the Moscow metro, and suddenly the world transforms. Chandeliers hang from ornate ceilings. Marble columns line vast underground halls. Mosaics depict workers, farmers, soldiers, and cosmonauts, heroes of the socialist state. The metro stations are palaces for the people, built to show that beauty belongs not only to the elite, but to everyone. Trains arrive precisely, doors sliding open with mechanical efficiency. Passengers stand quietly, many reading newspapers like Pravda or Izvestia. Headlines speak of space achievements, industrial progress, diplomatic tensions with the West. News is carefully curated, reflecting the official narrative. Still, people read attentively. Information is valuable, even when filtered. As the train speeds through tunnels, conversations are hushed. Public speech is measured. During much of the Cold War, especially in earlier decades, citizens remain aware that criticism of the government can have consequences. The memory of Stalin's purges lingers in older generations. Though the terror of the 1930s has faded, caution remains part of daily life. Emerging from the metro, you find yourself near a residential district filled with apartment blocks. Under Khrushchev, the government launched a massive housing campaign to address severe shortages. The result is the Khrushchevka, simple, prefabricated apartment buildings that rise 5 stories high. They are modest and often cramped, but for many families they represent progress. Private kitchens, indoor plumbing, a separate space for parents and children.
Inside one such apartment, a family begins its day. The father prepares for work at a factory producing machine parts. The mother, perhaps an engineer or teacher, as women participate widely in the workforce, readies their child for school. On the wall hangs a portrait of Yuri Gagarin, the first human to travel into space. The Soviet space program is a source of enormous pride. When Gagarin orbited Earth in 1961, Moscow erupted in celebration. The achievement signaled not only scientific prowess, but ideological triumph. The child ties a red scarf around their neck, a young pioneer, part of the youth organization that teaches loyalty, discipline, and collective values. At school, lessons emphasize mathematics, science, literature, and the achievements of socialism. Education is rigorous. Literacy rates are high. The state invests heavily in scientific advancement, aware that the Cold War is as much a technological race as a military one. Factories hum across the city's outskirts. Industrial production is central to Soviet identity. 5-year plans set ambitious targets for steel, coal, electricity, and machinery. Workers compete for recognition as shock workers, exceeding quotas in displays of dedication. Posters on factory walls proclaim slogans about unity and progress. Yet life is not without challenges. Stores often have limited supplies. Lines form outside shops when rumors spread that meat or butter has arrived. Citizens learn patience and adaptability. They exchange tips quietly, which store received oranges, where shoes might be found. The avoska bag proves useful when opportunity appears unexpectedly. Cafes and canteens offer simple meals, soups, bread, cutlets, tea. Conversation flows more freely among trusted friends. Humor becomes a subtle form of resistance. Anecdotes, known as anecdoti, circulate quietly, poking fun at bureaucracy or shortages. Laughter provides relief, even if such jokes are never spoken too loudly in public. As afternoon fades into evening, cultural life awakens. Moscow boasts theaters, ballet companies, orchestras, and museums of extraordinary caliber. At the Bolshoi Theatre, audiences gather to watch performances of Swan Lake or the Nutcracker. The arts remain a point of pride. Though creative expression is subject to oversight, talent flourishes within and sometimes around official boundaries. Writers, filmmakers, and musicians navigate a delicate balance. Some align closely with state ideals, others push limits subtly. Periods of thaw, especially under Khrushchev, allow for cautious experimentation. Later, under Brezhnev, cultural policy tightens again. The atmosphere shifts, but art persists. In parks during summer evenings, families stroll beneath leafy trees. Ice cream vendors sell simple treats. Couples sit on benches discussing hopes for the future.
The Cold War may dominate headlines, but personal dreams remain intimate and human. Career ambitions, love, family, stability.
Meanwhile, beyond everyday life, global tension simmers. In government buildings, strategists analyze satellite images and intelligence reports. Nuclear missiles stand ready in silos across vast territories. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 brings the world to the brink of catastrophe. For several terrifying days, Moscow's leaders weigh decisions that could end civilization. Ordinary citizens know little of the exact details at the time, but rumors ripple through the city. Anxiety mixes with resolve. Air defense drills occur. School children practice emergency procedures. Posters remind citizens of vigilance. The possibility of nuclear war is abstract yet omnipresent, like a distant storm cloud that never fully disappears. Foreign visitors to Moscow during the Cold War often describe a sense of watchfulness. Hotels catering to outsiders are monitored. Official guides accompany tours. Yet many visitors also encounter warmth, conversations over tea, shared curiosity about life beyond borders. Despite ideological divisions, human connection persists. By the 1970s, Moscow appears stable, even confident. The skyline expands with new housing complexes. International events, such as the 1980 Summer Olympics, bring global attention. Stadiums are constructed, infrastructure improved. Yet beneath the surface, economic strains grow. The centralized system struggles with inefficiency. Innovation slows. The term era of stagnation begins to describe the period. In the 1980s, a new leader emerges, Mikhail Gorbachev. Words like glasnost and perestroika enter public vocabulary, openness and restructuring. Newspapers begin to publish discussions once unthinkable. Citizens speak more freely about history, including painful chapters long suppressed. Shops still experience shortages, but conversations change. There is cautious optimism. Western music and fashion become more visible. The rigid atmosphere of earlier decades softens. In kitchens across Moscow, debates stretch late into the night about reform, democracy, and the future of the Union. Then, in 1991, history accelerates. Political turmoil culminates in the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The red flag that once flew over the Kremlin is lowered. A new era begins. But our tour lingers in the Cold War years, decades that shaped Moscow's identity profoundly. What stands out most is the complexity. Moscow was not simply a gray, silent city of propaganda, nor was it a utopia of socialist triumph. It was a living metropolis filled with contradictions. It held pride and anxiety, discipline and creativity, scarcity and ambition. Children grew up playing in courtyards between apartment blocks, imagining futures as engineers, doctors, or cosmonauts. Elderly veterans carried memories of a war even more devastating than the Cold War tensions that followed. Young couples met at dances, fell in love, built lives. The architecture still bears witness today. The monumental skyscrapers known as the Seven Sisters rise against the skyline, blending Gothic and socialist realism styles. Metro stations continue to gleam beneath the earth. Red Square remains a gathering place. If you stand there at dusk, imagining the decades when missiles paraded across cobblestones and speeches echoed against ancient walls, you begin to sense the weight of history layered within the stones. Moscow, during the Cold War, was a city under scrutiny from the world, yet intensely personal for those who lived within it. It was shaped by ideology, but sustained by human resilience. It faced rivalry, crisis, and transformation. And as night falls over the Moskva River, lights reflect upon the water.
The city quiets, though never entirely sleeps. Somewhere a train rattles through the metro tunnels. Somewhere a radio broadcasts news from afar. Somewhere in a small apartment kitchen, friends pour tea and speak in careful voices about tomorrow. The Cold War would one day end. The Soviet Union would fade into history, but Moscow would remain, changed yet continuous. To walk through Moscow during the Cold War is to walk through a chapter when the world stood divided, when fear and hope coexisted, when ideology attempted to define destiny. It is also to see the everyday humanity that persisted beyond slogans and speeches. This was Moscow, formidable, watchful, creative, enduring. A city at the center of a global standoff. A city of marble metro halls and modest kitchens. A city where history was not only made, but lived.